Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Hera Usher, and I am the Communications and Digital Outreach Coordinator for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. So before we get started today, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining from different places, we want to remind ourselves that we gather on the unceded land of the Indigenous peoples. I'm joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I'm currently located on the land of the Powhatan people. And if you are unsure whose land you are on and want to find out, you can visit native-land.ca to find out. So now let's continue to the show. Did you guys know that there is an election every year in Virginia? This year on Virginia's ballot, we'll be voting for a new Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, and with a current Virginia Governor, Governor Northam's term coming to an end, we will also be voting for a new Virginia governor and new House delegates, depending on your district. So in today's episode, we will be having a candid conversation about the importance of young adults making it to the poll and casting their vote, especially in our local elections this year. Joining this conversation, we have VAIPL staff members Leah Jones alongside with Maeve Hall, who is currently a student at the University of Richmond and an intern with VAIPL, who will be returning in the fall. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing well this morning. Happy Friday.
Yes, same. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad. So I wanted to start off with this question. Why should young adults in Virginia vote, and why should we care?
Well, I can go ahead and start. I think an easy one is just to say that voting is one of the ways that we can really just be active citizens and voice what we would like to see in our communities and voice what we really feel like should be prioritized by our legislative leaders in our state, in our local communities, but also even on a federal level. But this year especially, we're thinking about our local communities because of the local elections happening this year. So that's an easy one for me. May, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always essential just because, I don't know, everybody, it's kind of our main way of contributing and kind of breathing life back into democracy. I think this year, especially, we've seen how fragile that can be, and it's not something that should be taken for granted. And even if you're cynical about whether or not your vote counts in Virginia, especially, we've had in just the last few election cycles, like where people have lost by just a few hundred votes or 100 votes or less. And so I think that just reinforces to me that your vote does count, and it's a really important way of, making your thoughts and feelings known. And I also am kind of a big believer of like, you can't complain if you don't vote. So it's important to kind of at least cast your ballot and stay informed.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of going deeper into what I was saying before, I think a lot of the times we hear like, will it even really make a difference? Why should I even try? And kind of to May's point, yes, it matters. And yes, it can make a difference. Local elections dictate all types of different things that I think folks don't realize, especially on an election year like this one. Things like school quality, policing and public safety, affordable housing, public transportation, creating bike lanes, and protecting green space, just to name a few things, are all affected by the decisions that are made in these elections. So a lot of us may not realize all of the power that local government has to change and protect the real quality of our lives on a day-to-day basis. When I think about it, we as citizens have the right and the civic duty to vote for the people we want to represent us. Whenever new legislation is made, we will literally be voting for the people who will speak on our behalf in the General Assembly when it comes into session. And the legislators will be the people who are voting for the bills and resolutions that can really affect the way that we live here in the state on an everyday basis, you know? So whether it be the SNAP benefit programs or protecting green space in your local communities, these are all things that are affected by these elections.
Yeah, I love that. And I think both of you touched on this briefly a little bit already, but why is it important to vote with environmental issues in mind, and why especially this year?
I mean, I think it just keeps getting clearer and clearer that we're at a really critical point for our climate. And I'm glad that environmental issues and climate issues have become kind of more of a mainstream and a bigger political like issue. And I think that also has a lot to do with the work of younger people. So like, for example, like the school strikes for climate is I think that was really powerful and kind of elevated the conversation about climate. But there's more we can do. And I think in addition to voting for people that, have really progressive and important like focuses on climate and the environment, we also need to hold them accountable once they're in office too, to actually follow through with what they're saying, because, as we've discussed a lot before, and VAIPL definitely understands climate is like a really intersectional issue. And so if you care about social justice in any capacity, the environment needs to be a part of that, because it will exacerbate so many other issues. So that's kind of my main reason that I'm always trying to focus on it.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, like you said, Mavis, we keep seeing how critical of a time this is to really make serious changes and impacts, to really rearrange and try and reimagine our world, and fight what's at bay right now, or currently already happening and quickly getting worse. And furthermore, to that point, as young adults, as young people, this is the world that we're fighting for. We are going to be left with the world as it continues to worsen, if it continues to worsen, right? Not trying to to say that we're going to end up in a bad direction. That's the hope that we won't. But this is the time to really make that happen, because otherwise we may see a time where our children, what will their world look like, and what will our children's lives look like. So I think that becomes all the more important when we talk about voting and making structural differences, infrastructural differences in our communities, in the way that we operate in our state and as a country overall. And I think specifically in Virginia this year, this is an awesome, opportune time to make those huge infrastructural and systematic changes in our state that need to happen to create those positive impacts and mitigate climate change and negative effects that way. So especially as we try to make the transitions into a cleaner economy, I think that voting is one of the easiest ways even that we could voice and prioritize the importance of this. So young adults, we need to be fighting for ourselves because other people are making it clear that they necessarily always won't. So this is definitely something that we should prioritize.
Yeah, and I really like how you said that. So knowing that, what are the ways that we can encourage young voters to make it out to the polls?
This might sound kind of bad, but like nice peer pressure, I would say, like a kind, gentle reminder to your friends and family, and just kind of people that you know on social media to, I don't know, just kind of reminding them and kind of being like, look, this is important and you need to show up, and here is where you should show up. I think making it just so easy for people when it's possible to vote, and knowing where their polling location is and stuff, all of those basic things. And I think that's where the role of social media can be actually helpful. Because like you said, Virginia has elections every year, and sometimes people can forget about them pretty easily, or not know like when their like district lines get changed and stuff. So I think social media can be a really powerful tool for reminding people and educating them too.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Because what I was gonna say was, an easy way is typically with different registration events. I know a lot of the times various campuses host their own registration events or just have tables outside of, dorms or the dining halls or something like that to really try and encourage people and make sure that they know important dates, deadlines, are able to easily register. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to get people encouraged about it, because it helps you also recognize that other people are also seeing this as something that's important. People, and for whatever reason, we are as humans, we love to bandwagon, and if it seems like it's cool and everyone else is doing it, you can feel more inclined to do that for yourself as well. So I that's one of the first things that comes to mind for me. And I love that you mentioned social media, especially now with COVID and everything. We may not see those events happening as much, or people actually standing outside and outside of dorms, outside of dining halls, especially if they can't really leave home. So we'll see what's to come and what that looks like this fall. But I think another important way that we can encourage young voters is just through knowledge of, like I said, important dates and deadlines. And I think that's oftentimes what leaves young adults out of the voting conversation. It's the fact that folks may not be aware that the deadline to register to vote is was yesterday, but they didn't get the chance to register. So with that being said, I wanted to use this time now to make sure that we could share some important dates and deadlines upcoming for this election, so that people can be aware and take these dates down and not forget, and make sure that you're registered. So September 17th, this is the first day of in-person early voting at your local registration office. That's the earliest date that you can begin to vote if you are already registered and good to go. However, the deadline to register to vote or update your existing registration is October 12th. So that is a bit of a ways away from now. However, if you're like me, dates tend to sneak up on you, even if they're more than a month away. So October 12th, once again. And October 22nd is the deadline to apply for a ballot to be mailed to you, and do in apps like in at home, send in the ballot type of voting form. And the request must be received by your local voter registration office by 5 p.m. if you are doing a send in mail in ballot. And these dates are not written down on the screen. However, you can be sure to go to the website that you see up on the banner on the screen now. This is the Virginia Citizen Portal, elections.virginia.gov/citizen portal, which has all of the information that you need to vote, to related to your polling location, learning more about the candidates, as well as helping you keep track of all these important dates and deadlines.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. And those important dates are also in our comments, so you can scroll down and look at the comments in this video to keep track of those. And when thinking about voting and keeping track of polling locations and deadlines and what's on the ballot this year, is there any other resources that folks can use?
Yes, there's a couple of other resources in addition to the Virginia portal that I just mentioned that will give you, once again, all of the details you need to know about polling locations, what's on the ballot, what it means, and where you can find the information I just shared. Um, there is also a link that lets you know where to find your local legislator, or and determine who are all of your local legislators. So if you would like to reach out to them, connect with them, get to know what they're about, and also just really get in their ear and let them know what you care about. You can find it here at this website, who is my.virginiageneralassembly.gov. this link is now at the bottom of the page. That is where you can find your local legislators. So be sure to check out both of those resources. And I also have to share that if you already are someone who cares about voting, even if you don't care about voting, but you know you need to vote, we're asking you to also make a commitment to vote with the environment in mind for all of the reasons that we just shared earlier. It's such a critical time, and we need to be thinking about our environment, especially when we are going to the polls, as this is something so critical that we need to take action on. So with that, if you would like to make your commitment to vote with the environment in mind, you can be a Faith Climate Justice voter. And at this link here, you can sign our pledge to be a Faith Climate Justice voter. So please also check that out. And I think those are all the resources that I would like to share today. Maeve, do you have any resources that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, not specifically and not as great as those. Those are all really useful links and I've used them before, so definitely check them out. But also the one thing I would just add is that Leah mentioned kind of the focus on college students, and I think there can sometimes be a lot of confusion if you're like a first year in college and you just got there. If you're from out of state too or from out of district, it's really important to, use these links and make sure that you are registered in the state you want to be registered in still. And there can be some confusion about that sometimes. So just making sure to stay informed and look out for those dates is really important, because we would hate for, if you want to participate in the awesome Virginia elections and then you're not able to. So I think that's really important just to be aware, and something that certainly can be publicized more on college campuses too.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Maeve. So thank you all for joining today. I think I learned a lot as a young adult voter myself, so I'm sure our audience does as well. And thank you both for sharing your knowledge and really encouraging us all to be aware of how important it is for us to vote. And so on that note, I just want to thank you all again for joining us today, and remind you that you can always check out what's new with us on our website, which is vaipl.org. Thank you.
And be sure to join us in our efforts as well. Follow us on our email newsletter here at this link below to continue keeping up with us.